Mr. Speaker, it is indeed an honor to stand before this honorable chamber to lend my support to the 2025-2026 estimates of revenue and expenditure debate. Mr. Speaker, before delving into the details of my presentation, permit me to give thanks and praise to the Almighty God for His grace and countless mercies bestowed upon our country over the past few years. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my family, especially my wife, my daughters Vicky and Crystal, and to all my constituents of Dennery South for placing their trust and confidence in me. Mr. Speaker, in the past few weeks, we've lost some of our constituents, and I want to make special mention to persons like Elias Vidal, Elijah Marfrin, better known as Elijah, Mrs. Vidal, and Miss Teresa Sylvain. Yes, Mr. Speaker, every time I stand in this august chamber, I am reminded of a very important person in my constituency, although has passed many years, but I know if he was alive, he would have been glued to his television screen at this time, and his name is Gregor Stanislas, better known as Pushum. Mr. Speaker, I want to express my condolences to the family of those who've passed and to wish them strength and courage as they go through this period of bereavement. Mr. Speaker, the estimate of revenue and expenditure for 2025-2026, my ministry will benefit from a total allocation of $42,345,900. And the breakdown is as follows. Capital project expenditure, $15,910,200. And recurrent expenditure, $26,445,700. In terms of total funds allocated, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Agriculture's budget has increased by 3% in 2025-2026 when compared to the revised estimates of 2024-2025. Mr. Speaker, permit me to highlight some of the key line items in the ministry's budget for the next fiscal year. $1 million for payment of premium to insurance for crop insurance coverage, Mr. Speaker. And that is very significant because every year we know natural disasters, hurricanes, tropical storms, and its impact on the agricultural sector. Just last year, we had a major hurricane that impacted the sector, and the government had to assist the farmers in terms of relief. Avec ça en patois, gouvernement Saint-Lucie l'année ça là a commencé 1er avril, ça c'est l'autre mois, a metté $1 million à budget là pour supporter insurance by farmer. Et puis nous savons que ces farmers qui allaient pour un chaque problème là venu pour saison hurricane et plusieurs fois le gouvernement Saint-Lucie pour garder pour l'argent pour assister ces gens là. Nous avons tout de suite l'année ça là, nous avons un programme en place et nous voulons commencer avec ces farmer figue et farmer banane. because là on y go vent, c'est ces moun ça là avant qu'a trouvé affecté. Et chaque saison hurricane, c'est moun ça là qu'a trouvé dévalisé, plantation qu'a trouvé dévalisé because of vent. And so, Mr. Speaker, we are going to focus on getting an insurance package or mechanism in place to assist our banana farmers, our plantain farmers. And I'm not saying in any way that we've forgotten the other farmers, but we are going to start with the banana farmers. Mr. Speaker, this insurance mechanism is not only going to be a St. Lucia initiative. We have been discussing with other countries in CARICOM that are similarly affected during times of natural disaster to have one common insurance package available to the farmers. Mr. Speaker, I want to also mention that $800,000 was allocated in this year's budget to advance agri-practices and new technology and innovation. And Mr. Speaker, that has to do with hydroponics, Mr. Speaker. And I want to take the time to thank the government and people of Guyana for making available 2 shade houses with hydroponics technology situated at Union. And we are hoping that that can help us boost our production of leafy vegetables to reduce on our imports of those commodities. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, to create an avenue for our young people to get training through this facility so that after completion of the training, they can get into their own backyard small projects with regards to hydroponics, Mr. Speaker. We've started with 2 small greenhouses, and we are hoping to expand. But it is also important for our persons or students who are involved in their school projects. They can find time, they can spend time doing those projects or undertaking those school projects at those facilities situated in Union. Mr. Speaker, another area that is very significant to our farmers is a sum of $600,000 that was allocated to continue the farm labor program, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, last year, under the UBEC program, we had 115 workers involved, totaling 350 plus acres of land where farmers got labor assistance. Et puis, programme ça là, moi, quoi était important pour ces farmers, because quand nous savions ces problèmes là, ces farmers ont expérimenté, c'est pour labourer pour travailler en les farms. A lot of the farmers are challenged by the unavailability of farm workers, Mr. Speaker, and it has caused the cost of production to increase. But, Mr. Speaker, we are hoping that this $600,000 will allow us to continue the program commencing in June, July, for a period of 5 to 6 months. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful as Minister for Agriculture for receipt of those funds to continue to make agriculture what it's supposed to be, considering all the challenges that we face in the sector every year as a result of natural disasters. And Mr. Speaker, you would understand the sensitivity of this government with regards to support for our agricultural farmers. And just recently, as a result of the black Sikatoka disease, Mr. Speaker, we were able to provide some support to our farmers. That is 405 farmers in the tune of $1.8 million to assist them in terms of getting back into the production, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, under the tree crop expansion and rehabilitation project, which is meant to target 100 acres of abandoned lands, Mr. Speaker, to be targeted for cultivation of selected crops like avocado, coconut, soursop, mango, and breadfruit. And that is because we are seeing some very appropriate abundant lands, Mr. Speaker, especially in the valleys. And we believe that those lands could be put into more productive use, and a total of $3.7 million for the next 3 years was allocated. And this year, Mr. Speaker, a sum of $400,000 is programmed to further support implementation of this initiative. Mr. Speaker, the funds will go towards selecting and formalizing MOUs with participating farmers, land preparation, provision of inputs, training sessions for farmers in key areas of crop maintenance and sustainable farming techniques. Mwen ka di, dat l'année chay kote Saint-Lucie qui ni bon terre, et puis chay moun a quitté ces terres là, moun qui ni fig, moun qui ni jardin, et puis nous quoi ces terres là a yo nécessaire pour continuer produire manger. Et puis nous ni en bas un programme pour 3 l'année, 3,7 millions de dollars pour nous faire un chay travail, nous avons targeté 100 acteurs. And Mr. Speaker, we are going to ensure that we use this opportunity to increase our food production to ensure that we are reducing on our food import bill and ensuring that St. Lucians can eat what we grow and continue to grow what we eat. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to inform that the new livestock station at Volet in Miku is now operational. However, there are still some critical capital works to be undertaken. These works include the construction of a drug room, a sanitary facility for staff, a new swine quarantine pen, erection of perimeter fence around pastures, and the construction of road and drainage infrastructure. A total of $900,000 is allocated in this new budget for completing the capital works. And Mr. Speaker, there was an arrangement established by the previous government where an amount of 101 acres of land was set aside for the establishment of this project or facility. And we are now working very, very quickly to identify lands within that parcel to move the issue of cattle on our highways, especially opposite Massey stores, to identify lands within that parcel to deal with the problem of the cattle on the highways, especially along or next to the Massey stores. And Mr. Speaker, I get calls from a number of persons indicating that my ministry should make a serious effort to address that problem. And at a cabinet discussion recently, we've taken a decision to identify lands in Volet to place or transfer the cattle issue to an area where it's more secured and that we can bring an end to this long outstanding problem in shock. Fisheries facilities, Mr. Speaker, since 2002, an allocation have been made to repairs to fisheries facilities, Mr. Speaker. As we know, the government of Japan donated a number of fisheries facilities to the government and people of St. Lucia. But the rate of deterioration of these facilities, Mr. Speaker, has been a cause of concern. And since 2022, an allocation has been made to assist or to provide much needed financial assistance to repair or upgrade those facilities. And Mr. Speaker, in this year's budget, I would like to announce that a sum of $1 million, Mr. Speaker, has been made for general repairs to those facilities, Mr. Speaker, and we will see work happening in places like Savans Bay, Dennery South. We will be doing some work on the Prale Jetty, in Conneries, Ancillary, Soufre, Labrie, because, Mr. Speaker, we need to upgrade those facilities as much as possible. Mr. Speaker, we also received another sum of $900,000 that is specially earmarked for the Viewfort fisheries facility, Mr. Speaker. As we know, it's a huge facility, and there are lots of issues there, and we are hoping that we will use those funds to deal with a lot of the issues that we have to address at this facility. Mr. Speaker, we also received $350,000 for the construction of a new forest house in Forestier. Very, very long ago, we had what we call a forest house in each of the 5 selected ranges in the forest reserves, Mr. Speaker. And those houses are deteriorating very quickly. And for those persons who drive through the Badly, you will see the construction of a new forest house, and that was an allocation made in the budget of 2024-2025. And we are looking forward, Mr. Speaker, to repair the forest house in Forestier in this new financial year. Mr. Speaker, I would like to draw your attention now to the constituency of Dennery South, a constituency that I have lived for many years and understand the issues within this constituency, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I came in 2021, I became aware of all the issues with this constituency, especially the social issues, Mr. Speaker. We had a degrading infrastructure, for example, the fishing port. Là où tu drive le fishing port la Dennery, où tu kay ce canal là bloc avec une chay, bois poisson, la pateni light, ces places là pas te peintiwe, et puis nous tenions chay problème à le fishing port ça là. We saw, Mr. Speaker, a degraded Dennery multipurpose center, which got extremely damaged after a hurricane, after a tropical storm in July of 2021. Mr. Speaker, the Lakai daycare had not given any sort of attention since its construction in 1999, Mr. Speaker. We had a serious problem with deteriorating housing infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. Our cricket house had been in a state of abandonment, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, my focus was to really take a serious look at those facilities and to get them back in a state where proper use or they can be utilized for the benefit of the people. And so, Mr. Speaker, when I started construction of the houses in Dennery, Mr. Speaker, I remember people like Olive, people like Akang, Zabwiko, Tatayo, Nora. Those persons were living in deplorable conditions, Mr. Speaker, and I thought it was necessary to provide immediate assistance to those persons under the Housing Assistance Program. To date, Mr. Speaker, I have assisted in one way or the other, whether by way of a sheet of plywood or 2 sheets of galvanized, or a window, or floor ply, or block cement steel, to almost 200 persons, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the government for making the funds available, especially through the Ministry of, or Department of Housing, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to take this time to say to those who have not received that moko oblio, on peut prendre patience, nous pouvons l'argent pour bailler tout le monde là même, mais petit par petit, nous caille ba ou assistant là, nous joindre l'argent. Moi ni une liste qui longue, et moi savent tout le monde ka vini pour demander et yo vle là même. Mais mon wish moi de ça bail tout le monde t-shirt galvanized là, t-shirt plywood là, t-shirt floor ply là, because moi savent nous tout besoin. Mais nous pas ni tout l'argent pour faire et puis nous moi vle dou point anti patience. Là nous joindre l'argent, donc il fait comme mon paye pour bao assistant because moi savent au besoin. Now, Mr. Speaker, the other side has been criticizing my small houses. But là, ou parle by akang, et akang du côté il a dormi. Ou parle by jukbois, et jukbois du côté il a dormi. Là, la pluie il a tombé, et il a mouillé. Moi, si oui, c'est moun sa là, là ou parle by yo, kaido Starbatch fait anti-hotel ban moi. Because là, la pluie tombé, yo pas qu'à mouiller. Et puis, même ça, l'autre side là dit, maintenant, il continue de travailler pour aider tout gens d'Henry South pour faire la vie plus meilleure. Mr. Speaker, I now move to infrastructure, Department of Infrastructure, Head 43. And Mr. Speaker, in Henry South, I must say, unlike other PAL reps, I am very comfortable with the state of roads, especially some of them. But we also have some roads that need some attention, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that the Hospital Ring Road, Mr. Speaker, the potholes are increasing rapidly. Victoria Street and Scanot, Mr. Speaker, from the Mole Bridge to the Belfashion area. And when I speak to people like Bobby Girl and Kosh and people like Tijan, there is always the issue of how soon we can repair. And Mr. Speaker, I know it is a challenge for us, but under the potholing vote, Mr. Speaker, I see a sum of $2 million EC dollars, and I'm hoping that some of those funds will be made available to assist us to upgrade these roads that I just mentioned. Mr. Speaker, under the RIM, what is called the Road Improvement and Maintenance Program, I have been informed that the bypass road from Plant to Green Mountain, Mr. Speaker, is one of those earmarked for rehabilitation. Mr. Speaker, this road has a number of potholes, and every time I drive there, I get numerous calls to address issues relating to the potholes, Mr. Speaker. Also, the Boisjoli Road starting from Tida, that is Hilltop, all the way to Montparnasse, Mr. Speaker, has been selected, and a costing has been completed to upgrade this road in its entirety. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say to my people of Dennery South, Lakai and Lime, Mr. Speaker, that attention will be given to those roads, Mr. Speaker, in a manner that would help address the issues. Because I know how it is when, potholes, you have potholes, and every time you drive, you see the potholes are getting bigger and bigger. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Minister for Infrastructure for all the support, Mr. Speaker, that he has given to the Dennery South constituency in terms of road rehabilitation. But, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of roads, Mr. Speaker, I just want to take time to mention that there is an urgent call for a road coming from where you call Red City, that's opposite Plans Place. That's a concrete road, but that road stopped just a few feet, maybe less than 100 feet from the main road leading to the hospital, Mr. Speaker. And I've already engaged the Ministry of Infrastructure in terms of conducting a costing, Mr. Speaker, or undertaking a costing to give priority to opening this road. Because, Mr. Speaker, when the Dennery village is flooded, and as we know, Dennery village is below sea level, anytime the village is flooded, it makes it difficult for vehicles to access the village to get to the hospital. As you know, the Dennery Hospital is located on the top of the hill. So, Mr. Speaker, that bypass road, if it is connected, Mr. Speaker, would avoid any issues with regards to having to deal with flooding in the village. And as we on flooding, Mr. Speaker, I see $4 million on the rivers and water courses, Mr. Speaker, and that deals with the silting of major rivers and drains in my constituency, and that includes Lakai, Lime, and Dennery. And every time it rains, Mr. Speaker, I remember people like Lauren. Lauren would call me and say, Starbatch, we flooded. When I go, I get concerns from people like Lina, Paula Vitalis, Rydon and Zian, all those persons in those areas, Mr. Speaker, the areas or access to their homes is flooded, and those issues sometimes cause major problems because they have to mop and clean their property, their homes soon after. So I'm hoping that Dennery South will continue to benefit from this in a big way so that we can alleviate the plight of the people who are directly affected. In terms of sports, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Minister for Sports for giving urgent attention to a major situation with regards to the Dennery football stands. Chaque lè mwen tou bout la, ep la pikatobe, na honte, because tout moun ni pou koui from a bas stand na, because their stand na pa couvert, and any little rain or heavy rains, Mr. Speaker, would make it very, very uncomfortable for a number of persons. And every time I speak to Ramel is also very concerned, and a number of other persons, Mr. Speaker. When I discussed the matter with the Minister for Sports, or for Youth Development and Sports, Mr. Speaker, he guaranteed me that he too was concerned, and we have now completed designs for blocking the back of the stands. And also, Mr. Speaker, we've gotten designs for the construction of the change room, Mr. Speaker, which is very, very critical for the people of Dennery South. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that this is timely, and I hope that before the start of the rainy season, we will see the completion of those two projects. A contractor has been identified for each of these projects, Mr. Speaker, and I'm hoping that not too long from now, we will see, and I was just told, Mr. Speaker, as of next week, work will start on the change room and blocking the stands for the Dennery playing field. The Dennery basketball court has been in a deplorable state, and every time I speak to Sanya would tell me, Minister, we have to do something with this because we can have netball competitions, basketball competitions, Mr. Speaker, but because the football or basketball court is in such a deplorable state, Mr. Speaker, and that includes the surfacing. I was told that the rims that you use for the basketball poles, Mr. Speaker, has deteriorated. Lighting, Mr. Speaker, has also deteriorated, Mr. Speaker. But I want to say that an award has been made to a contractor to put new lights on the basketball court, Mr. Speaker, and in the next few weeks, small contracts will be awarded to resurface the court and get it in a state of readiness, Mr. Speaker, so that our people of Dennery South can use it as they've been doing in the past. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, there is an issue of lighting on the Lakai football field, Mr. Speaker, and a contract has been awarded to an individual in the sum of almost $60,000 to assist with installation of lights on the football field in Lakai. I'm hoping that the Chester's Club president and executive, as well as the other persons who are using the football field, will be happy because work will soon commence in terms of installation of lights on the Lakai football field. Mr. Speaker, I've also sponsored in a number of ways the semi-professional football league competition in Dennery South, making provision of uniforms to players, football boots to players, Mr. Speaker. And in 2023 and 2024, Mr. Speaker, I sponsored the district rep football competition in Dennery. Mr. Speaker, this has brought or creates an opportunity for a number of young people to come together to participate in sports, Mr. Speaker, and I will continue to provide that support as long as funds become available. Under the Ministry of Equity, Head 51, Caregivers program, Mr. Speaker, and I want to take the time to recognize and to thank our caregivers, not only in St. Lucia, but specifically in Dennery South, for the service, for the provision of care services to the elderly and disabled persons, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, every time I speak to persons like Joycelyn Martrin, Paula Pierre, Miss Lamine Lakai, Mr. Speaker, they thanked the government in a big way for the provision of service to them on a daily basis under the Caregivers program. Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize the hard work of people like Justina Wells, Dean Biscom, Bala, Sister Polius, Julie, Lenisha, Naomi, Beverly, and all the others, Mr. Speaker, who are making a big effort to provide that service to the much needy persons in the constituency for the work that they do. And Mr. Speaker, I am making a plea on behalf of Dennery South that anytime funds become available, we need to increase our quota of caregivers in Dennery South to continue the good work that this government has been doing for the elderly. In terms of the Ministry of Health, Mr. Speaker, I think it's head 51, I'm not sure. But upgrading of the Dennery Hospital has become a major concern. And just last week, I met with a team at the Ministry of Health, and we had a discussion on works to be done on the Dennery Hospital, Mr. Speaker, in terms of improvement. And I was very happy a large sum of money has been allocated to upgrade the Dennery Hospital in a big way. Mr. Speaker, I expressed concerns with regards to parking, because every time you drive to the hospital, it is very difficult to get parking, and I recommended that they should use the space in the back of the hospital facing the sea to provide some extra parking for persons going to the hospital. Moi aussi dis that ma content l'hôpital Dennery a fermé à minuit tous les jours, because there have been instances where the hospital closed its doors at midnight, Mr. Speaker, and in less than half an hour you had an accident near Mongrel, and those persons had to be transported half an hour to St. Jude. Mr. Speaker, a small community like Dennery, I believe that a greater effort has to be made so that we can see a 24-hour service provided at the Dennery Hospital. I know it requires extra staff, manpower, resources, etc., but our small constituency, especially when you have to also consider the neighboring community of Dennery North, Mr. Speaker, in the event of a disaster or an emergency, the difficulty or challenge that those persons face when they have to receive service at the various health institutions. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Ministry of Education through the Minister for Finance, Mr. Speaker, for making available an allocation around August or September before the start of every school year for the last 3 years, Mr. Speaker, for making available small financial assistance to our needy parents to ensure that they can encourage or ensure that their children enjoy a proper school education. And every year, Mr. Speaker, we reach out to hundreds of persons, and I want to say a big thank you for the Minister for Education for making sure that this happened. But also, Mr. Speaker, the Dennery South receives tremendous support in terms of school supplies from the U.S., Mr. Speaker. And I want to take time to thank in a very big way Coral and her husband and the rest of her family and other persons that she has ties with in the U.S. for making a big effort to make those school supplies available to the children, needy children and parents of the Dennery South constituency. Mr. Speaker, Under the Ministry of Tourism, a sum of $1.7 million has been made available for the last 2 years for the revamping and upgrade of the Saturday Fish Fiesta. Nuni $1.7 million qui là avali ba Ministry of Tourism, ça c'est un programme là qui Community Tourism Project or Program, ça c'est pour nous réhabiliter côté nous gagner bagay spécial les samedis, the Fish Fiesta on a Saturday. Et puis nous avons travaillé avec Ministry of Tourism pour garder plus vite manière nous avons établi projet là pour y pas ni problème, nous pas ni problème et puis c'est péché nous ni pour travailler pour rien de manière pour nous mettre ces notes là à la place côté il pas y trouver affecté yo. Mais nous aussi ça c'est en place côté là où nous ni hurricane la mer a monté et puis nous ni pour garder pour mettre ça au créer un barrière en côté même quand nous ni c'est wash là pour la mer commencer et entrer il pas affecter situation et bien projet nous avons quoi bagay peut-être bon finissement mai June nous allons continuer le programme ça là and we will make available a facility that is going to generate high economic activity for the vendors and the people of Dennery South. Mr. Speaker, on the Agriculture and Fisheries, which is the ministry that I am responsible for, Mr. Speaker, you know we've distributed under the Food and Nutrition Insecurity Program 39,000 bags of fertilizer, 49,000 bags of lime, 2,500 water tanks to farmers, a farm labor program, herbicides, diaphin, and just recently, Mr. Speaker, a relief package of $1.8 million for the black Sika toka disease. Mr. Speaker, I want to draw your attention to the Dennery Fishing Port, and it is well known as the Daito, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I came in, as I mentioned earlier, this facility was in a state of deterioration, and there was an urgent need to make recommendations for upgrade of the facility. And Mr. Speaker, in 2023, an amount of almost $500,000, Mr. Speaker, was spent on upgrading drainage, Mr. Speaker, improved lighting, upgrading of the moorings, painting of the facility, upgrading of the area where the fish cleaning is taking place. And just recently, Mr. Speaker, we continued work on the other areas where persons like Mina and the other persons are selling under the fishing port. Mr. Speaker, what was very significant is the contracts were awarded to the fishers, Mr. Speaker, and persons like Fouchette, BH, Cork, Jackie, Nixon, Babu, and others were the ones responsible for the upgrade. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, we are constructing a perimeter fence, Mr. Speaker, on the facility that is Dennery Fishing Port Daito, and we have a very, very important person in the name of Colette Fontinel, Mr. Speaker, who is responsible for cleaning and maintaining the facility. And Mr. Speaker, I must say that Colette has been doing an excellent job, and I want to encourage her to continue the work to ensure that we have the standards that we are to set. Currently, we are putting a new ice machine in there, Mr. Speaker, and as we speak, work is ongoing in Dennery to put in a new ice machine. Mr. Speaker, we have on island 10 new ice machines, and I know communities like Soufre that would have already received theirs would still get an opportunity to get another one. But I see the member for Labrie staring at me. I just want to tell him he's also down to receive a new ice machine. Grosile, Viewfort, Canries, Ancillary, Miku, Mr. Speaker, and we have started work to upgrade. Yes, you should. You have quite a bit down there, I think, but we'll see what can be done. And Chozel, Mr. Speaker. So, as we speak, construction work or work is ongoing in the various landing sites to install those ice machines. Mr. Speaker, we are experiencing problems with the boat owners in Dennery, that is in the pond, because the pond is heavily silted and it makes it very difficult for the boat owners when it comes to parking, and especially when the tide is very low. Some of the boats, there are damages caused to the boats as a result of the heavy silt levels in the pond. And Mr. Speaker, I was able to get a sum of $45,000 to desil the pond, and I'm just informing the fishers of Dennery that as of the weekend, work will commence on the fishing port to desil the pond. Mr. Speaker, for many years I've been under pressure from my constituents for the state of the Dennery Multiple Center. And just last month, Mr. Speaker, work has commenced on the upgrade of the Dennery Multiple Center. Mr. Speaker, it's a place or venue where we used to have quite a lot of social activities like weddings, birthdays, dances, Mr. Speaker, and it has been in a state of degradation for the last 3 or 4 years. I'm very happy to state, Mr. Speaker, that work has commenced on the facility. A new road has also commenced, that is by Ride-On, heading to the park, in the tune of $73,000, Mr. Speaker, and work is expected to commence very shortly to complete that road heading to the park. Since 2016, Mr. Speaker, contractors had been identified, but when the new government came in, they stopped the project. And so, Mr. Speaker, I just want to mention to the people of Dennery, chimère qui a commencé bon Ride-On pour aller passer Zia pour aller boko apé, chimère ça là a commencé tout de suite. We are also constructing a footpath in Toalo, Mr. Speaker, and that is by Peter Saint-Gis from where Jimo lives, because that area has been prone to flooding, and in some cases it's very muddy. As I mentioned, work has started in terms of the installation of new lights on the Lakai playing field and new lights on the Dennery basketball court. We've completed the nursery road in Lakai, and that is a road that has been in a deplorable state for decades, Mr. Speaker. Now I am certainly sure that when the children and other persons living in there walk that road, Mr. Speaker, the thing of mud and removing their shoes, Mr. Speaker, would be a thing of the past. We constructed a new footpath starting by the tamarind tree by Lynn, connecting that nursery road, Mr. Speaker, and another concrete footpath was constructed near or below the Lakai daycare. We are working towards continuing work after this budget, Mr. Speaker, in an area by Shorty. I'm hoping that we can get the funds to construct a road going from Shorty all the way to Lenisha, and to also work towards upgrading a water situation where a lot of the persons who are living in that area, their lines or water lines are connected all the way in near the main road. So we have to get some funding available to assist them in getting their connection much closer to their place or dwelling place. We completed the new road on the hill that is by Velda's place, and you know Velda has a son who's disabled, and very often she had to be pushing her pram or whatever they call it through the rough road. And so, Mr. Speaker, I just want to mention that this road has been completed, and I'm hoping that she would have been receiving a sigh of relief after what has happened. Mr. Speaker, before I close, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my team in Dennery South, my council, my constituency group, and all other persons who have assisted me in working together with them to achieve what I just mentioned. Mr. Speaker, this is just a small amount, but I must say in 3.5 years, that's quite a lot. I know they are concerned with a number of other areas that we need to give attention, Mr. Speaker, but I want to guarantee them that I will continue to take their concerns and see how I can address those concerns as much as possible, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I said in my manifesto, it's about prospering with Prospere. And Mr. Speaker, I want to tell the people of Dennery, in spite of who my opponent will be, come the next general election, Prospere will remain the parliamentary rep for Dennery South. Mr. Speaker, I know some persons may not be happy because, they think that, every time you ask, you shall receive, but I just want to tell them that I will never forget them. I will continue to work with them to ensure that Dennery South seat remains with Labour for the rest of my existence in government. I want to thank my PS and my DPS and my staff of the Ministry of Agriculture. I want to thank my cabinet colleagues, especially the Prime Minister, for making available the funds that are needed for the Ministry of Agriculture and my constituency in particular, Mr. Speaker. I will work with the resources that are available to address the critical priority areas, Mr. Speaker, because you cannot do everything at once. But I want to say in a big way, I'm very grateful for the Prime Minister giving me the opportunity to serve in his cabinet. And I must say, every day I'm learning from persons like Honorable Richard Frederick, Sean Edwards, Mr. Musa and Alva and all those who've been there before me. And I hope one day I will be in a place where I can say that I have gotten to where I needed to go based on the advice and recommendations that they will be making to ensure that I continue to deliver at the highest level to the people of Dennery South. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.